Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back. Electrified Rider here. So I'm out on this beautiful Sunday morning, once again on the ET Max. You know, Sunday mornings are one of my favorite times to get out on the EUC. There's so little traffic going on, and on a beautiful day like today, it's just perfect for getting out on a ride. But I wanted to share with you my new pad setup, my Powerpads that I'm sporting today. I'm riding the POWERKNOBZ Void Core Prime V2 on the ET Max. And guys, this is really like a match made in heaven, if you ask me. These pads do a wonderful job complementing my riding style on the ET Max. A lot of transition riding from standing to seated. Without having pads in the shin area restricting you when you get down into that seated position, you're able to really get your legs close to the wheel. And with these Void Core Prime pads, I'm able to really lock in my feet around the ankle level, which I love. It gives me greater control of the wheel, more stability. And when standing with these pads, I just have a greater sense of freedom of movement, more control overall of the wheel. But with that comes more responsibility, because you are relying more on your skills rather than the pads to keep you on the wheel. But there's no comparing. When it comes to the seated riding position, having the shin area opened up like this and getting that locked in feeling around your foot position, it just feels wonderful, guys. Now, this isn't my first ride with these pads. My first impressions, I will say, were just wow. It reminded me of taking the training wheels off of a bicycle when you're a child. Not that, you know, your traditional pad setup is like training wheels, but that's just the overall feeling that I had, is that sense of freedom. So these pads also worked out great on the Veteran Lynx electric unicycle, but not so much when I took the wheel off-road. I find that I do like to have a little bit more contact with the pads when I'm doing more off-road riding style. So when I'm standing, I find that it's much easier to carve and to turn with this pad setup. Now, I'm not one of these guys that does major carving or leaning on the wheel, but still. Now, for myself personally, when I'm riding in the standing position on an EUC, I like to pull power and get leverage from around the ankle area more so than the shin area with your traditional power pads. Now, I know this is going to be unique to each rider. A lot of folks like to pull that power from the shin portion of their power pads. So POWERKNOBZ makes several different configurations of pads for your EUC. And this particular pad setup is a one-piece pad, which I found over time that the one-piece pad setup does have lots of positives and benefits as far as adhesion goes. Having that one-piece pad rather than two different power pads, you know, the front and the back brake pad, it just gives you a more locked-in Velcro. We rely on these pads quite a bit, and so to have that larger surface area, now, other than the one-piece pads, I also have what's called the overkill brake pads on the back here, which are nice and big, 4 inches, they extend out. And they also have a nice reflective tape on the back end for higher visibility. So I found this combination of pads from POWERKNOBZ is wonderful on the ET Max. When I tried to put the same configuration onto my Lynx, the overkill brake pads were hanging off the back end a little bit. So I had to switch it over to a smaller brake pad. But because I've got the body extenders on this ET Max by Vertex, that gives me that extra room needed to get those brake pads on in the right position, and it just goes together perfectly. Now the name void core for these pads is in part because there is a void in the middle of the power knob which can accommodate an LED light. It's really bright and cool, actually can fluctuate different colors, and they're working on getting those back in stock, otherwise I would have already ordered a pair, but that's a nice addition. You can also add more visibility to your night rides or daytime rides. I like to ride with my headlight on even during the day on my EUC, just like I do with a motorcycle. Constant on headlight just gives a little bit more visibility to you in all situations. Let's do some more transition riding from standing to seated with the POWERKNOBZ. Oh yeah, locked in beautifully, so comfortable. I can't see myself going back to a different pad setup for the ET Max with the amount of transition riding and seated riding I do on this wheel. Now, depending on the way you like to dial in your pads, your riding style, riding terrain, you may or may not want to bring these down lower and really lock your foot in, or bring it up a little bit higher like I did, which gives my feet some wiggle room, which is how I prefer to ride with my power pads. I like to be able to get my feet out quickly, and I'm also always making kind of micro adjustments as I'm riding. Whether I'm transition riding from standing to seated or I'm making a turn, I tend to rotate my foot, even if it's just an inch or two. And when I come to a stop, which often happens when street riding in urban, suburban settings, I like to be able to get my foot off the pedal onto the ground real quick sometimes when you're locked in, it can be somewhat of a struggle to get your foot out. So I prefer to have some space between the power knob and the top of my foot. But again, this is all personal preference. Again, just sharing with you the way I like to dial in my setup. But being able to keep your knees nice and tight to the wheel like this not only gives you more control, but it also helps keep you more streamlined, which is pretty much the name of the game when you're on an EUC. The more streamlined you can get, the faster you can go, the more stability you'll have, and just better overall comfort level on your ride. Yeah, buddy. I'm able to hug the turns with so much more confidence and control with this pad setup.